The California Supreme Court has removed the Taxpayer Protection Act from the ballot at Newsom's request. This proposition would have subjected any tax increase to a vote of the people. Two of Newsom's top priorities, increasing taxes and silencing voters, just got a major boost. Oh, we gotta talk about this.
You're listening to the Segovia Show.
Greetings everyone and welcome to the Segovia Show. I'm your host, Segovia. That quote I just read was from a tweet by Congressman from California, Kevin Kiley. I must say, this is an absolute outrage. For those of you that have followed me long enough would know that I was part of the effort in getting signatures for the Taxpayer Protection Act. The group behind this, the Howard Jervis Taxpayers Association, they made these petitions available to everyone. And we've honestly been at it for like 2 years because we failed the first time around to collect enough signatures. The second time, just enough. And now the California Supreme Court removes a ballot that went through all the checks, all the signature verifications to qualify for the ballot, and now will no longer appear for the November 2024 election. This is an absolute travesty. Susan Shelley, who was on my program and we talked about it back then, this is what she tweeted about on June 20th. The California Supreme Court says Taxpayer Protection Act makes it too hard to raise taxes. This is a direct quote from the opinion. Whereas a restriction on the ability of local governments to raise revenue might previously have been offset by the power of the state to raise revenue, the TPA, the Taxpayer Protection Act, burdens both simultaneously. Like Susan said, the California Supreme Court is complaining that it will be too difficult to raise taxes because it's up to us to approve it. Do you have any idea what your local legislator does, whether it's your city council or your state legislator? Do you have any idea what they are doing? As of this recording, I'm recording this about 36 hours after the ruling, most of everyone is focused on a presidential debate on a decision they had made years ago. But they want to see the fireworks because everybody knows there's going to be a ratings draw for CNN and anybody reacting to this. Look, I don't care about the presidential debate, okay? I made up my mind a long time ago, and I don't hide who I'm voting for. I'm voting for Felon 47. But when it comes to the state legislator, why do we not get the same kind of coverage locally? Do you have any idea who your local representative is? Do you have any idea who your district state senator is? What about your city council? What about the judges? We are afforded an opportunity to vote on judges on election cycles. So who the hell are these judges sitting on the California Supreme Court? And it's typical for people that do not get involved in any of the election process or procedures or anything of the sort. They just complain about elections, whether you're left or the right. You'll argue the same thing depending on whose team jersey is being on the losing side. Say, no, your vote doesn't count and this and that. Well, you have these judges, 7 of them, and nearly all of them are the ones that voted to remove the rights of the California voters. That was Patricia Guerrero. She's the 29th Chief Justice of California. She was sworn into office on January 2nd, 2023, and she's hailed as the first Latina to serve as California's Chief Justice. Congratulations, we got a communist. The other one is Carol Corrigan, Goodwin Liu, Landra Kruger, Joshua Groban. No, that almost sounds like the artist. Martin Jenkins, and Kelly Evans, most of which are Democrats, and one of them is a Republican in name only. They voted to protect democracy by removing a duly democratically prepared ballot initiative for us to vote on. They said, no, you have no say. Only the governor and or the state legislator can dictate what tax increases will be made, whether you like it or not. Folks, it's an unprecedented attack that we are witnessing under the draconian rule of the Newsom administration and the super liberal majority that we find in Sacramento. I normally do not get this animated or this political on this program, but I gotta call it out for what it is. This article by Adam Bean, the Associated Press, is from KCRA. The California voters lose a shot at checking state and local tax hikes at the polls. The California Supreme Court on Thursday took the rare step of removing a measure from the November ballot that would have made it harder to raise taxes, siding with Governor Gavin Newsom by ruling the change would have upended the way government works. So following the democratic process upends the way government works? Holy smokes. You know what happened in 2018, folks? On that election, we had Proposition 10, which was a rent control measure. And the majority of California residents voted no to have statewide rent control. So what happened in 2019? The California legislator said the people got it wrong. Let's introduce Assembly Bill 1482, and Governor Newsom signed it. So by the time it went into effect on January 1st, 2020, we had statewide rent cap, which some call rent control. They literally undid the will of the people in less than a year. And you think that was enough for the tenant activists? Do you think if you give them a cookie, they're not going to ask for a glass of milk? We have a ballot initiative that was almost immediately certified after picking up so many signatures. That's going to appear in the November ballot called the Justice for Renters Act. I covered this and debunked it way back when, a few months ago, and I will be covering it again because we have to vote no on this. What is it? It's Proposition 10 all over again. And Proposition 10 isn't the only one of its kind. It's multiple iterations by the same group with different names, different numbers, trying to ram a rental stabilization ordinance that will blanket the entire state and will remove the last law that protects property rights in the state of California called Costa-Hawkins. Holy smokes, let me continue with the article. More than 1 million people signed a petition to put a measure on the ballot this November that would have required voters to approve any tax increase passed by the state legislature. It also would have required all local tax increases to be approved by 2/3 of voters instead of a simple majority vote, which is good because so many people locally, especially in Los Angeles, have been tricked. The biggest impact, however, would have been that the measure threatened to retroactively reverse most of the tax increases approved since January 1st, 2022. Local governments warned they would have lost billions of dollars in revenue that had previously been approved by voters, and it would have threatened recent statewide tax increases, including one on guns and ammunition, to take effect on July 1st. California voters are allowed to bypass the governor and state legislature to amend the state constitution at the ballot box. Sometimes they do frequently. Voters have amended the Constitution to protect abortion rights and declare that marriage is between a man and a woman, and dock legislators pay if they fail to pass a budget on time. But the court has recognized a distinction between amending the Constitution, adding something new, and revising it by altering the way the government works. Voters can amend the Constitution by a ballot measure, but they cannot revise it. And the article goes on and on. I'm going to leave this on the show notes to accompany this episode at www.thinkssegovia.com. You can go read it for yourself there. But folks, this is an absolute travesty. You should be outraged. Susan Shelley tweeted later in the day because there was a lot of reactions to this, to her post. She asked, to all who are asking, what's the recourse after the California Supreme Court blew off the state constitution and legal precedents to remove the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act from the ballot? In all stolen elections, the recourse is the next election. Now that sounds fantastic, except that, well, they can rig that one too. So while technically the judges can be recalled, the question is, can those ballots, if we get the initiatives there, stand if we're going to have this much interference from the California Supreme Court, from the governor, from the state legislature, because they've been suing to stop this from happening. Meanwhile, the state wants to make it easier to tax you into oblivion. And that includes the local municipalities. If taxes were the solution, why haven't they worked? And why do we continuously need more of the same thing that never works? On this program, because of my background in real estate, I talk a lot about homelessness and a lot about the housing affordability crisis. Sometimes they're lumped together, and a lot of people just present the same solution. We need rent control. We need to fund all this housing, so we need to put more property taxes. We need to do a mansion tax that wasn't really for mansions. It was more of a blanket thing to cover more properties. So meanwhile, in your backyard, Your local governments and state legislators are destroying your rights by inches, and you're not paying attention because you have this dog and pony show, this sideshow circus in Washington, D.C. that affects you at an overall level, but it doesn't affect your day-to-day like it does over here. For those of you on the right that only focus on the Washingtonian politics and think that Trump is your solution to everything, you are wrong, because your local elections matter more than that. And when you have a bunch of people say, we got to rally everybody, we got to go vote in this presidential election, we got to make it so much that they can't rig this thing hard enough to steal it. Okay, send everybody over there. And then when they look at the ballot, what's going to happen? They're going to see, okay, this is my presidential vote. And then what is all this? Local municipalities, vote for your council member, vote for your local supervisor, vote for your new judge, vote for your school board of supervisors or school board members. Like, what the heck is all this? Oh, I'm just going to vote along party lines. Wait a minute. These other people don't have party lines listed on their names. How do I vote? And sometimes there's guessing games. And sometimes they cancel out your hard vote that you studied to do because a bunch of people that wanted to react to one single issue have no idea what the hell they're doing. And then you're presented with propositions or measures or initiatives that affect at the local, the county, or the state level, and you have no idea what they are, and now you're going off based the words. It's like, oh, make rent affordable. Oh yeah, I'll vote yes on that. What is that? The erosion of private property rights in this state because everything will be taken over by the government. It's called Justice for Renters Act. Vote no on that this November. We were supposed to vote yes on the Taxpayer Protection Act. That's not happening anymore because our rights are being stripped away by this legislator, by this governor, and now the California Supreme Court. You're either asleep or you just don't care enough to pay attention, but you damn well complain, won't you? And yet you do nothing. But yeah, I needed to vent, and so I vented. I'll leave the links available at the show notes accompanying this episode at www.theandresegovia.com. Follow me across the socials at the Andres Segovia on X_Andres Segovia. The show is more video centric now because of my live streaming. So make sure you're following me on the video platform of your choice. Subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I put an episode out. I'll see you in the next one.